This is the Venturing Angler Podcast. I'm Tim Harden. In this episode, we're back chatting with Gaia Macchiavello from LOL Argentina about what Buenos Aires has to offer. This is the second part of a series on BA. First part was so packed with information, we decided it'd be worthy of a series. Interestingly, that last episode didn't really talk about fly fishing, but people loved it. Let's chat with Gaia. All right, Gaia, welcome back to the Venturing Angler Podcast. It's great to have you.
Thank you for having me again.
Thanks.
Apparently, you can't get enough.
That's right. And in the last
torture.
I love it. No, in the last episode, I was talking about how you were making me really excited to head to BA, and then I did that, and so I saw you a few weeks ago, which was great. Had some great food, great wine. Got to see more of the city, and I think I went into it with a lot more excitement and enthusiasm than before because you'd gotten me so excited as a listener of my own podcast, and so thanks for that. And I'm excited to do more on this episode.
I'm good. I'm excited too. I had a lot of people say the same thing. A lot of Argentines that live abroad telling me that they learned more about their country through my podcast than they did in school. So it was very interesting.
Well,
it's just like that.
It's funny, and I think we talked about this, but we didn't talk about fly fishing. We said that there's Dorado fishing, but we didn't really say anything else. Mm-hmm. And I knew that that the listeners subscribe to this because it's about fly fishing. I knew that it was not fly fishing content, but sure enough, we were hearing from people like crazy. They loved it. So forget fly fishing. Just kidding. No, just kidding.
Fly fishing is a means to an end.
Exactly.
Because of that, people get to really learn about the city and the country, because thanks to fly fishing, people repeat and come back. And the people that want to learn and want to see, you can come back 15 times and not see the same place twice. I'm going tomorrow with a client who's a bird watcher to the Natural Science Museums in La Plata. Because there's over 3 million fossils. There's 44,000 botanical items. There's an amphitheater. It's just one of the best natural science museums that has more fossils than ever, all recollected by a very known Argentine, the guy that also brought the trout, Benito Moreno.
Yeah.
Nice. Francisco P. Moreno is the guys that brought in the rainbows and the fontanales, the brookies, which I love.
Yeah.
I love. So even though it's not about fly fishing, it does talk to the fly fishing world, because if you're going to come and you're going to be a part of this, and you've been coming for 18 years in a row, you need to, dive into the culture. A lot of them are super happy to, but at least this way, when they come next time and they listen to the podcast, they can actually have a conversation to a local about their things. So it's a virtual city tour without being a city tour,
No, and for me, my thoughts after this last trip was that I wanted to spend more time in the city, and then,
yes,
exactly. I don't live my life by Instagram, but so far I've only posted photos from the city. I've been home for almost a month or so, and I posted a bunch of city photos and haven't, didn't post anything about the fishing, which is what ultimately drives me down there. So, yeah, let's. I love this.
That's
city.
What we're here to do. We're here to make for the city and the city to be a part of what you look forward to when you come fishing. And we have a lot of people that tell us that we look forward to spending the night or the day in BA with you and the LOL girls as much as we go fishing. Of course, they might miss the night here, and they'll like it or not. There's no way they want to miss a day of fishing.
Right.
We know priorities, but it's funny because they like it and they come and they see, and we're trying to put together a few new tours of the city, but just seeing a different way and whatnot to keep it sort of happening so people have something to do
Well,
and learn and get involved.
let's dive into that now. And so um, in the last episode, we talked about much of the history and the culture of the city,
Mm-hmm.
but let's get more into what people can do, because there's so many options. I
So
spent
there are.
I spent many hours before my flight doing a bunch of things that I wanted to do and didn't even get close to to many things that I was hoping to do within a 5 block area of the hotel. And so um, let's start
Yeah.
there, if that makes sense. Let's start where I was
Yes.
staying in Recoleta. So what is this neighborhood, and what's it a launching point for? Because I think a lot of people stay in that area, who are on
Yeah.
their way to and from Patagonia. I don't know if this is a good way to launch, but if it is,
It's the way.
all right, let's do it. Let's do
We'll
it.
jump on the bandwagon. I'm pretty good at talking to him, so just throw me a curveball, try to do the best out of it. Um, Recoleta is the originally was farmland. We'll start by that. The city started down in San Telmo, but because this beautiful yellow fever, what's it called? Uh, Why? Infection? No, it's not called infection. Outburst, I'm going to say. The wealth of Argentina, the wealth of that was here, that had farmland up here in the northern part of the city, decided to, go hide out here for a while until they control the epidemic, which is the word I was trying to look for before, and then they would return. Well, that never happened, and like we probably talked about this in the last podcast, but the money's moved out that way. So Recoleta is the old, wealthy neighborhood in VA. I live in Recoleta, and I'm probably one of the youngest ones there is here. The people that hang around, there's a bar, a coffee shop in the corner of my house called Josefina. I love going because I feel young, because the crowd is over the age of 65. Yeah, and like that's a kind of, and in the past, the people from the neighborhood would get married and live in the neighborhood. But it's not hip. No, the hip thing is Palermo, which is only 20 blocks away. About a mile and a half. And it's right there. But getting from here to there can take from easy 45 minutes to an hour and a half, depending on
Right.
how you go, how you do it, and what you want and what you're interested in. So Recoleta is the safest. Yeah, it's the elegant part of Buenos Aires. If we were to compare it to New York, is the Upper East Side. Yeah, is where the wealth is at, where the beautiful looking people is at. The truth is, all of Argentines are beautiful looking people, and I keep on hearing it from everyone, from the people here in Recoleta, the people over in Palermo, the people down south. We're a pretty good looking bunch. So, but it's casual. It doesn't have big nightlife, so the people can go. It has a lot of restaurants, but not a lot of. It has some bars, but it's not like Palermo. Palermo, Soho, and Hollywood are like always compared to a city like New York, are the Nolita, Tribeca, Soho part of the city where the young people are at, and has a lot of shopping, and it has a lot of speakeasy bars and sushi and all this different vegan, all this the new wave of flavors and more culture injected into what it already is a melting pot. So Recoleta, from your hotel, you have the cemetery, which I think we talked about the cemetery before, which is a must. If you're here for 2 hours and you say, Gaia, what does that have to do? You go to the cemetery. And yes, it sounds horrible. Why the hell would I go to the cemetery? It's a museum. It's a museum. It teaches you about history. It teaches you about wealth. It teaches you about who was who and what is what. To go to the cemetery, it's not a matter of money. It's a matter of status. And there's a lot of people that are there that had money at a point and don't anymore. There's people that are super wealthy. And like always, Argentina always has, everything is pink until something is blue. There's someone buried there who shouldn't be buried there, which is another attraction for the people to the cemetery, which is Mrs. Eva Duarte, and then later on Mrs. Eva Perón. She was the the Robin Hood of BA, and we could do a whole episode of her because her life was just one of those things that's like, did you make this up, Kaya? No, I didn't. I promise. The same thing reaction I get when we talk about the economic history of Argentina. It's always very colorful, always very loud and full of interesting stories and whatnot. So that cemetery, which is 7 city blocks, and the Theater Colon, which is another one of those emblematic places of the city, are the few places left that can show you how wealthy this country was. So
Well,
that's a block away from you.
yeah, and so I actually did go to the cemetery, and I didn't see Ava Perón's.
You got lost, like everybody.
Well, I kind of thought it'd be cool if I didn't, because
Mm.
everyone,
Muy bien, Tim, muy bien.
small wins, I guess. Everyone in the U.S. knows Ava because of Madonna in the movie.
Correct.
Um,
Correct.
I mean, not everyone. I guess
No.
I'm dating myself a little bit, but that was a big movie when I was younger, and
Yes.
um, so like I wanted to like look at I don't even know what people say. Do they say look at
Vault.
yeah, I mean it's like you said, it's an
It's a
above
city.
it's a city. It really is. It's an above ground cemetery.
Above
And
and under, Tim.
oh
It's not
really?
only above. It goes up to 30 feet down.
Oh, I didn't know that.
There's two cemeteries that are similar to the one in Recoleta. Pierre Lachaise in Paris, where Jim Morrison is buried at, and then New Orleans. And there's two distinct differences. One, we go down. There's more people underneath than what there is above.
Oh
The
wow.
vaults go 40 feet down, and then they run to the middle of the face that of the street that they face. So vaults in wider streets have more space. Vaults in a corner have more space. Vaults in the narrow street in the middle have less space. It's and the location. Even when you're dead, you better be dying on a big street.
Yeah,
It was on a side street,
and it's
you
it's
know?
it's really like a city. And
It is.
for those who we're trying to describe it, there's statues. There's some of them are just rectangular house sort of shaped buildings
Yeah,
that
yeah.
structures that might be. I would guess that, what would you say they range in, like 12 feet to 40 feet?
Más o menos. There's some of
Oh,
some are plain, but there's some of them that are so ornate. The amount of marble, the amount of ironwork,
right.
the things that people showed, right? It's just because they sort of wanted to show what the family was about or their legacy, and it was very much of I'm the best, I'm the best, and some of them are just, pardon my French, of
No.
how much money and time and and detail of things. Like, if this is your vault where you die, where the hell did you live at? Where you made of diamonds, because this is all granite and Paris stone and marble. It's not cement, flattened cement. And all this came from Europe on boats, right? They weren't built here. They didn't come to the middle of the Andes and chop the Andes and get all these materials. No, they were brought over from Europe. Imagine the time and the expense. If they're expensive now, which everything is easier, back then, people had so much money that there's a saying in Argentina is that we threw butter to the roof. I think we told this the last time. We didn't know what to spend money on,
That's funny.
right? So it's there's we can do a whole episode of this too. At the beginning, it was like, people think about cemetery and they get the chills. You go there and you see the coffin and you don't get the chills because it's a welcoming cemetery. It's not those cemeteries. There's other cemeteries in the city that you go in and you have, it's grim and you feel like someone comes over you. Here it looks, and even on a rainy day, is a nice place to be at.
Yeah, there's lots of religious statues, right, of um, angels and these kinds of things, and depictions of statues of the individuals themselves. Um,
Yep.
it's pretty spectacular, and you walk through it like you're walking through city streets, because you are.
Yeah. It's Great Lake too. No, look, there's there's several stories that are very interesting, but there's one that just always makes me laugh. There's two. we probably said on the podcast before. I'm going to stop using that saying. For people that are new, I'm going to say it again. There is a family, Del Carril, and this family, this husband and wife were married for many, many years. And at some point of their marriage, the wife asked for a favor that she wanted, and the husband said no. And she proceeded not to talk to him ever again. They were married for another 20 something years. She never talked to him again. And then when he dies first, he gives himself this big couch with this big throne, and he looks all pompous and full of money and easy. She dies later, she gets her bust, giving him the back, so facing the other way, and still mad.
Yeah, that's great.
Like, seriously? Yeah, that's how far it went for certain things. Like, didn't you get over it? No, she wanted to make sure that everybody knew that he was an asset to her. You know?
That is funny.
You know? Then there's the last one, or one of the last vaults, which is what was very moving to me, is the caretaker. The caretaker of the cemetery, being the caretaker, and this was a lot of wealth. He didn't have the money ever to be able to be buried there. So he was always very sad. He didn't know what to do. And he could have worked like a crazy person. He would have gone there ever. But his brother wins the lottery. And this brother, being a good brother, a good sibling, he decides to give him the money so he could build his vault. So he buys his little land, his little parcel. He builds his vault. And what does he build? He builds a vault with a picture of himself, all made of marble, carved in, with everything, like with all the tools he used to do his job, with everything he liked. And it took him like 5 years and a ton of money to get it done. He was so happy that he decided the day they gave him the inauguration of the vault, he killed himself.
Oh, no, I shouldn't laugh.
Yes, because the only thing he wanted to do, that's what he wanted in life. He wanted to be able to have a vault so he could be buried there.
Oh,
he conquered it. He thought there's nothing else to do, so he commits suicide so he could use the new vault.
Well, for all the listeners out there, as you can hear, this is a very important, special place, and it's definitely worth a stop when you're in town. And it's funny that I didn't realize until you said something now that people were a little bit older in that side of town.
Yeah.
A lot of older couples out for dinner.
Yes. Yes. It's the older neighborhood. Yeah.
But not like elderly, but.
No. It's not elderly, older. It's a neighborhood, but in Recoleta you won't see any street art. Ever.
Oh, you're right. Yeah.
Because it's the elegant neighborhood. Yeah.
Got
You
it.
go over to Palermo, which is the urban, and then the neighborhood, you'll see street art everywhere. Things like that, no loud discos around here. Bars, yes, but no loud discos. In Palermo, there's bars, discos all over the place. You have to be a heavy sleeper to be able to spend the night in Palermo, for example.
Right.
That's why.
Yeah. Well, I told you I'm not going to name names, but I actually was so frustrated one night at the hotel I was staying at in Palermo a couple of years ago, at all the partying that I could hear, until I realized that the loudest people partying were my friends who were down the hall. So then, then I joined the party and I didn't care about the noise anymore. But then I went out for dinner and it's people playing music on the streets, street art everywhere. Actually, no one wants to hear from me. Let's hear from you about what Palermo has to offer.
Bueno, Palermo is awesome because it's the biggest neighborhood of BA. Out of the 56 neighborhoods that we have, Palermo is the biggest. And now it's been subdivided into Palermo Soho, Hollywood, Parks, Palermo Sensible, Palermo Queens, and a few more. It was originally the Italian working neighborhood. And with time, it got revamped, and now it's the white-collar, young living neighborhood. It has, for starters, it has the parks. The parks of Palermo are humongous. Humongous. It's 5 kilometers of park. It has it has a beautiful rose garden, amazing rose garden that blooms all year long. It has the the racetracks. It has the polo field. It has a golf course. It has a planetarium and a Japanese garden. So there's plenty to do only in the parts of Palermo. Then in the different areas of Palermo, it's mainly about drinking and celebrating art. There is all kinds of graffiti, which is, we're gonna rephrase that. It's street art. I've been told, Gaia. It's not graffiti because there's different types of street art. There's
Oh,
stickers, there's stencils, there is
murals.
murals. You know, so all of that. In fact, we've housed several the gatherings from different show, like movements, like the Bienal for Art, that people come and they give them spaces to go crazy and they come out with impressive things. Those people are very talented. I have to admit, I can even draw stick people, so I think their hats off to them. There's a beautiful flea market. I am a person that is in love with maps. And I get my cravings, and I'll go buy every map I can. And I always go to that flea market because there's always an old map, and you can buy not only old maps, but everything and anything from furniture to food is also there in Palermo. There's a theater. There's theater. There's a lot of that too. There's a lot of wine tasting in Palermo. There's several places where you can go wine tasting. They're open for the public. Of course, we could get it all set up, but there's several of that too. There's obviously shopping to do. And I know people don't come to Buenos Aires to shop, but it's a good gig. Retail therapy pays off down here, and now with the exchange rate, even more so. So actually, I was doing a tour the other day, and these women decided that they were going to shop. And I love shopping, but when you stop and buy Converse in the middle of a tour, it's like, ladies, thank you very much. I decided right there and then that people didn't really want a tour. They just want to hang around, which is also a thing. Structured, responsible tour guides like us, we think people want to know about, everything. And some people do, and some people simply don't, and it's fine, right? So we do all these kinds of things. We'll give you the history. We'll give you the fun. You want to go bar hopping from 3 o'clock in the afternoon to 8 o'clock at night? We'll do that. We will do for people what they want to do. The city offers everything. You just have to ask for it. Yeah, you want gardens? There you go. You go Palermo. You keep on going north, and you go to the Costanera, which is all the river, which is our border to Uruguay. And I'm going to say this because I can guarantee you people are saying this. It's not a river, it's an ocean. No, people, it's a river. I guarantee you. They ask me, are you sure? Sort of. Yep, it's a river. So we utilize the river a lot as well, which is right there beside Palermo as well. Palermo also has the domestic airport. I was forgetting of a very, very important place where everybody gets to visit, because if you're going down south, more than likely you will leave from the domestic airport and land back at the domestic airport. Yeah, so and in between Palermo and Recoleta, Palermo and Recoleta are the two golden neighborhoods of the city of Buenos Aires. Then we have the southern part of the city. We have San Telmo and we have Lavoca, which were the original two parts of the city when the city started. San Telmo and Montserrat are where the pink house is at, and all that new area. That when the epidemic happened and the wealth moved north, hoping to return, it didn't happen because they abandoned those homes. And the blue collars that used to live in La Boca, which is the port area, decided if we're going to die in a nicer home. So they moved into the old homes, right? And there they are. And now it's hard for people to go back. They've been revamping the area for a while. It's getting there. It's still a place that sometimes is good and sometimes is very complicated. It gets shady. There's certain streets you don't go down at night, but it's coming back around. It's also a beautiful area. And in San Telmo, what do you have? You have the Tortoise coffee shop, which is very important. It's the main coffee shop of Buenos Aires. It opens its doors in 1852, and it looks exactly the same.
Wow.
It's where all the people, the old aristocrats of Argentina used to hang around. And today it's still used by important. It's in the mornings a place where people go to have business meetings. Yeah, all suits, and some of the wonderful people that run our Congress. And I'm going to leave it at that because so they start there and they're there from 7 to 11 is suits and bench warmers. Then from 11 to to about 5 o'clock in the afternoon, the tourists, the people from the tourists, international and local, people that come from Santa Cruz, the province of Santa Cruz, Chubut, Salta, Misiones, want to go to the Tortoni as well because they want to see it. They don't know, and it's emblematic, so they go to the Tortoni. You can also go and you're right close to the obelisk, which is the main monument, if you want to call it, of the city of Buenos Aires. Everybody knows Buenos Aires. You show the obelisk, it's or Washington or Argentina, Buenos Aires, because it doesn't have any lakes around it. People understand it's Argentina, which is the equivalent. For example, there is like Times Square. Yeah, that's right there. Calle Corrientes, which is the Broadway of BA. The street that never sleeps is in that area as well. You can see that people can't believe it. We have a subway.
I didn't know that.
The first subway. Yeah, there you go, Tim. We were the 5th country of the world to get a subway. By 1913, we had our first subway line put in by the Brits. Yeah, and it was the first line, which is line A. It runs underneath Avenida de Mayo, which is the avenue that connects two very important buildings of the city of Buenos Aires that we all look up to and are very proud to have: the Pink House, the House of Government, and the Congress House. So two beautiful shit shows. It connects very nicely, and the beautiful avenue is just, it has these beautiful sycamore trees, tall, all these beautiful French-looking buildings, and underneath, the first subway line.
And the Pink House is like the White House of Argentina, right? That's
right.
And is it used anymore, or is it mostly symbolic?
Yeah, well, it hasn't been used for many of years. That's why the country's going the way it is. I'm sorry, Tim, to burst your bubble. I don't know what they're doing. If they don't use it for what it's used, I can guarantee you they don't. Yes, I'm sorry. I'm not gonna get into that. Yes, they use it. They turn the light on every day and they sit on the desk. They use it. Yeah, it's where the presidents go to work, they say, and they don't live there. The president lives in a separate building, an appointed building. No, it's a house over in the province of Buenos Aires, towards the north. It's called Olivos, La Quinta Olivos. That used to be Eva's and Perón's private home. And when Eva died and Perón got kicked out, the country took it in to become the actual government house. So in the Pink House, the presidents live and work in the same building, different wings, whatever you want, but in the same place. Here, they're about, I'm going to say, 10 miles apart.
Okay.
So the president used to drive into the city, do the thing, and used to go back for lunch, used to come back in. Now they go and come back by helicopter.
Oh, really?
Yep.
And okay. And then
so
also with respect to proximity, Recoleta is only a few blocks from the area you just described, right? Like the obelisk.
Yeah, it's about 20 blocks.
Oh, is it that far? Okay. But it's not.
Yeah, well,
it feels like
far,
you're close.
Tim.
Yeah, it feels like you're close.
It is close. 20 blocks is nothing. 20 blocks is less than a mile, or is a mile and a bit.
Okay, that's easy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A mile is 16 blocks. 1 mile.
Okay.
It's 16 blocks, okay? Because 160. Entonces, no, and you know what happens in the city? There's so much to see. You're so entertained that you don't notice how much you've walked. In fact, people used to do things like that back in there wasn't much of that going on this season, but I had clients that started walking and then, they got lost or they didn't want to come back because they walked literally 12 miles.
Right.
In the city.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's a huge city. No.
It's a huge city. It's a huge city. Yes. You have all that area. And then on Sundays in San Telmo, there's a lot of bars and there's a lot of coffee shops as well. And a lot of antiques. There's a very known and famous antique fair held on Sundays in Palermo. Every Sunday, and it's been happening for a long time. But it came about the following way. The wealth, the aristocrats left. the blue collars came in. They squatted. They squatted, and in this one house where they used to have 300 related people living there, immediate, secondary, best friend, whatever, from the same kind of community living in that big home. They all liked each other and they all shared certain things because it was like a villa. The squatters were done with sharing because they did the same thing down where they lived in Lavoca. And they said to themselves, if we're going to die, we might as well go die in a nice house. And when they got to the nice house, they needed money to be able to subdivide those homes. And the money they made by working what they did wasn't that much, so they couldn't. So they opted to sell back to the people what they left behind. So when the aristocrats noticed that they weren't coming back, they wanted their china set and they wanted their lovely, chandelier and stuff like that. Well, the people that squatted appropriated those, and on Sundays would go lay out what they had for sale. So the people just had to come to the fair to buy what they originally owned. Them or the neighbors, whomever got there first, it was there. And with that, they made money to subdivide these homes. And with that, it's one of the most visited fairs of Argentina, South America. If you're into antiques, there is where you go. It's impressive the things you can find in San Telmo. You can find trinkets, but you can find really, really good art, really good, all sorts of antiques. I know people don't like it anymore, but your ivories, your chandeliers, your, porcelain, just massive, massive, massive wealth in antiques in San Telmo. And because they've gotten that popular, the people from the world travel to San Telmo to buy antiques. The people from the travel the world to buy them back. And if you're good at antiques, you will probably get a good deal because the person that is selling it is not as good as you. But if you have no idea, ooh, it's gonna hurt, big time. Así que es, sí. So it's a very interesting place. There's a few hotels, a few boutique hotels. Um, Not a place I normally suggest people to stay at all. You want to go see? Yes, there is a Hilton there. That a lot of people do their points to stay there. It's also very not my cup of tea for people to stay, young or old, yeah, or older. No one's old. I'm sorry. Um, then the next neighborhood, which is Lavoca, is a place you go to visit and only to visit. There's no way that is a big no, 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 no. Yeah, you go normally with a guide, or you go by yourself in the mid part of the day. Say, La Boca used to be the port, and it was a very honorable and disciplined and beautiful neighborhood. But then it also became the place where all the illegal immigrants, people that came from different parts of the country, decided to go stay, and they didn't have the work ethic of the first workers, the blue collars that lived in that area. So it's become a beautiful first class shantytown. Yeah, unfortunately, the people, the masses, a lot of them depend on the government, and they decide to depend on that. So it's a place where anything illegal you want to go buy or find is there. Yeah, it's there. But it has two main attractions. One is Caminito, which is a path, which is a street, a corridor, or yeah, corridor, but I guess it's the name for it, that has all this beautiful colored buildings, and it also has beautiful artwork on the sides of it. La Boca, other than being a beautiful port, well, beautiful mentira. It used to be a port, and now it's colorful and it looks good. It's produced a few things, but mainly two very, very known artists. Benito Quiquela Martin and a man by the name of Filiberto. Benito Quiquela Martin was very, very educated man with a lot of world, and he loved his art. And he painted what he saw. He came from that area. And La Boca is full of colors. It's full of colors not because they were artists, because the original settlers, the blue collar working people, they came over in boats, they came over in everything, and they came as blue collar to begin with. So they didn't have the wealth or the money to bring all the money and things to come and build their homes. So when they landed here and they noticed there was nothing here to use, what did they use to build their homes? The leftovers of the other people. So they had packaging material. So they had corrugated iron and wood. The houses built on stilts because they were on the port, and the big, massive river, not ocean, when it gets blown from the south north, it overflows, and people, your belongings navigate away. They float out, so they're lifted. They were built with whatever they could, and then they needed to, we need to put paint. They used to take the leftovers from everywhere to paint. So the house can have 7 colors. And at a point, it was a sturdy, well kept home. Nowadays, it's sturdy-ish, not well kept. So it's Caminito and all the art behind Caminito. And then if Oscar would be here, who's one of our drivers, he would say the best soccer team of them all, Boca Juniors. Yeah, which is a very big deal for the Argentines, their soccer. And Boca Juniors is a very, very big team. So those are the things you go and see in Lavoca. That's the main attractions. And then in between that area, so we can basically finish the south, is an area called Puerto Madero. Puerto Madero was a port there at a while. Then it became rat heaven, and now it's Yuppieville. Yeah. The port of Lavoca was built not very brightly, like a lot of things in the city. So what the boats had to do, they had to come into this bay. They had to make a U-turn and go back out. It's sort of hard when you have that many boats coming in, that much traffic, because we had a ton of shipping, freighting, a lot of money. A lot of people made money in Argentina because of ship freight, including Onassis. So the whole thing was not good. So they decided to build a new port. And they built a port on a piece of land that was reclaimed against the river. And they decided to do 4 docks aligned with, it looks like a chain in a certain way. And the boats had to go through one area, like from the south, and navigate through the 4 docks, to the end and come out. Again, beautiful in paper, not very intelligent during when it had to be used. Not only they had narrow like canals to go through because they didn't keep it all one big white space, but then they had problems with the sediments because the river is a tidal river and it looks brown, not because it's dirty, it has the silt rumble into it. So they had to bring in dredgers. But when you bring in the dredger, what are you going to do with the tall ship that's bringing all the goods? So they had to abandon that port, and they kept on going to a port that we have now that is in the shape of like a comb, no, in out. There's no turning around. There's no going through anything. It's like a parking lot, They go and out because we have still a lot of freight done by water, a lot of it. We have a lot of tourism done by water. A lot of people come in cruise liners. It's a very big thing down here as well. Entonces, the port is very much a place that is still alive, and it grows and it grows and it grows. But Puerto Madero, when the port moved out, those massive warehouses and all of that was left there to, become rat heaven. And it became rat heaven. And in the 90s, under a president that we had that I call him the local Argentine Nixon, his name was Carlos Saul Menem, that refurbished all that area, sold it out, sold it to private people, and they started putting money into it. The next thing you know, there are huge skyscrapers, buildings with 45 stories, 50 stories, like Manhattan. Yeah, a lot of offices, it was the dining strip in the 90s. There's a hotel called the Faena Hotel, which is renowned for its designer. His name is Philippe Starck. Yeah, it's a very flamboyant hotel. It's there. It's done in an old silo. The Hilton Hotel is there as well, the main one that a lot of people stay because they'll get points. It's a area that is new, and it doesn't really have that authenticity of the city of Buenos Aires. It's an area that only has they call it the women's area because all the streets in the city of Buenos Aires before that became a living space. There were only 31 streets with women's names, and there have been more than 31 women worth mentioning in our history. So all the streets of Puerto Madero have women's names on them, all of them, of women of the history of Argentina that worth mentioning. They also call it the women's area because it's high maintenance. It's not a cheap place to be at, and the restaurants, all the eating of the servings of the restaurants also detail it, the women's area. I personally don't like people staying there, me personally, because it's beside a shanty town and a port. It doesn't really yell out Buenos Aires, but you have to go see it. And there's one main attraction in that dock area, which is a Santiago Calatrava pedestrian bridge. Yeah, inaugurated the same day that we kicked the president down in 2001 because we were not impressed with his movements of freezing everybody's assets. No one really paid attention to this thing, and later on, it came on to the show that they had inaugurated a beautiful bridge. It's a pedestrian bridge that swings open, done by a very famous man called Santiago Calatrava. So it's good to go and have a look. It's good to go walk about. And I wouldn't suggest people to stay there either. Yeah. And then last but not least of the areas of Buenos Aires, the area of Retiro, where the port is at, where the train station is there, the famous Florida street, and the downtown of BA that back in the golden days of Buenos Aires, the people that used to come fly fishing, you stay in a hotel. There were two hotels, one the Claridge Hotel and the Elevage Hotel that were in downtown. We've taken people out of there towards Recoleta, not only because it's a much better looking place and it's more lively at night and it doesn't look, like downtown, but also the traffic through there is horrendous. So we've tried to get people not to go stay there, and we've managed real well, luckily, because it's in everybody's good faith to be able to access your hotel back and forth as easily, because a lot of shit happens. People lose stuff, people forget stuff, people are on a run. There's a lot of things that happen, and the better the accessibility to the hotel or where you're staying at, the easier life is for all of us. So the area of Retiro has not only the beautiful Florida street, it has the one good fly fishing shop in Buenos Aires. It's on an eighth floor and down a hall. You go in an office building, you go up to the eighth floor, you come down this hall, and there's a gray hall with a bunch of doors. And I can guarantee you 90% of the people think this is where I lose my liver because it looks very shady, very shady. But you walk down this hall, and now they've got a dog. You hear the dog bark, bark, and you come to the last door, and it has now a 3D kind of trout. Before it had a sticker, which is about, I'm going to say 4 inches. But you would open the door, and there it was, a Christmas for fly fishermen. If they're missing something, it's not a place where I suggest you come and stock up. But it is a place you could go get something that you forgot, or you had some kind of issue with your bag and you need something. That's where we go. That's where we go. And also, it's got one of the things that Argentina is known for is leather. There's a few leather shops there, Silva Mario and Casa Lopez. They're awesome leather shops where we normally take people to shop either for themselves, mainly for the wives, so they bring something home and they're allowed back next year, which is very important. It is very important for you to make sure your whomever, your better half, is happy when you come back, because if they get something from it, you'll continue to come. And eventually they want to come. And it doesn't matter, like I say to clients, if you get the right thing. The fact that you thought about getting something already counts. For women, you guys are never going to really hit it. Very hard for you. Well, but we like the fact that you thought. So it's a very entertaining place to be at, too.
Very nice. And one thing I've noticed when traveling throughout the city is that it's a very active city. People are very active. There's a park where people are always casting fly rods. At least when I see
in the planetarium, correct? That's where I learned to cast.
Nice, and
in the planetarium.
It seems like that's where everyone who's local learns to cast. I know a few people who have done that. But there's also lots of recreation, fields everywhere. How would you describe those aspects of the city and the culture?
Buenos Aires is a very green city. Yeah, it's a very green city, and there's a lot of open spaces for people to gather. We are a very nosy bunch. We like to get in your business like there's no tomorrow, not because we're nosy because of anything. We are nosy because our city started with studying a crowd. When people got off these boats and they came to a massive new place that was empty, and they came with their loved ones, the first 8 nations that came and then the following nations that came, they brought their own language, and none of them spoke Spanish. So the Italian spoke Italian, the French spoke French, and the German spoke German, and so on and so forth. So people couldn't communicate. So the open areas where the people would go figure out who was whom and what was what, because we needed to grow a city, we needed to grow an economy, and people needed to be able to communicate. But if you don't speak the same language, it's not impossible because it happens, but it's not easy. In fact, what they did to begin with was your Christian name got turned to Spanish as soon as you got off that boat. So at least people could pronounce your name. So this brought two things. It brought two, 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 two things that are part of our culture. People watching, yeah, we love to, and we want to go, be right up in your business, and also exhibition. People like to be seen. Argentinians will go out the door, or Argentines, or the people from the city of Buenos Aires more than the whole country, but the city, people like to look good. And to look good, but we have a saying, beauty is duty. It's not easy. People are not born looking like angels. You have to work to it. So we like to eat. Yeah, we're mainly descended from the Italians and the Spanish. We like to chow down, and there's a lot of cow to eat. And when you sit at a restaurant, and you can validate this for me, Tim, the portions are ginormous, right? But if you eat a whole cow,
It's
how are you? How are you supposed to look thin and lean? You exercise. There's a lot of exercising going on, not only for the aspect of your physical and you looking good physically, also to be able to lose some endorphins and get, and not lose your mind. The city is beautiful. Our economy and is terrible. And if we don't, get really some stress out, people would it would be a very bad bunch of people. And even though we've gone through horror and back shit and back into the worst part of the worst, Argentines are a happy bunch. So we exercise to get to look good. We exercise to forget about the problems. We exercise to be seen. Yeah. So one of the things that happens in the park. Also, in the park, you go to what? You go to get out of your apartment. Yeah, not everybody lives in a big apartment, so they don't have a backyard. The backyard is the park. People go drink mate. People go sunbathe. Very important in Argentinian culture in the city that people have an even suntan. So our spring is in September. Starting mid-September, girls would go to the park in bikinis to sunbathe. They're not at the beach, they're at the park, and they will sunbathe. We bring our dogs out. The people from the city love dogs. We go to the park. We go to the park sleep a siesta, yeah, for smooching. It is very important. Argentinians are horny people, and we like to get it, we like to touch and kiss and whatnot. So it has to be the sometime we roll around in the park. So it's 90% of our culture happens around open areas. And the famous turn of the dog that we talked about in the last podcast is people want to go to this spot, but they will go do a few blockies, knowing what they want because they want to check out the area. They want to go do some scouting and they want to be seen. And what does a dog do before it lays down? The same thing. It turns a few times to see where it's going to be comfortable. It twirls at least 3 times. Well, we do the same thing as people. We twirl before we sit down. So it's they have a very very important role in our social aspect of the community. Argentines are very social, very social. Yeah, we like to be on about. We're loud. That's the bit of Italians of us. So yes, I'm not the only loud one, people. There's other people that are loud as well. And no one speaks faster than me. Well, my brother Massimo's right there, but I'm not the only loud one. Um, there's a lot of parks. The Rose Garden is in the parks. The Japanese garden is at the parks. The zoo. We had a zoo in the middle of the city of Buenos Aires. That used to have a polar bear and a kangaroo. Now it's got very few animals because the maintenance, which is not our forte, stopped happening, and they relocated some of the animals, and now it's called the Eco Park. What else we have in the park? The botanical gardens. In the botanical gardens, we have a section of the botanical gardens that is put in this place all the different types of mate plants there are. We can do mate tastings.
Mm,
Like you do wine tastings, we do mate tastings. And you learn about the plant, the botanical gardens.
cool.
So, yeah, there's a lot to do with the parks. The parks are a very important thing for us. Thank God we have them, because if not, we would be a concrete jungle more than what we already are.
Right. Right.
See,
When people are visiting and they approach you in LOL Argentina, how what options do they have? I guess the sky's the limit, right?
right.
Or do you have general tours or
There's a few things that we offer that we know people would get a benefit from and we would be interested in. Is one of them is a city tour. Yeah, a city tour is if you want to learn about the city, you want to have some knowledge, and you want to get in depth with the culture. A city tour is a must, because you see all these areas in a matter of 5 6 hours. And yes, it sounds like a lot. It is not, because we're not stuck in a bus. We have our own private car with your own private guide. You come up, you go down. You're the boss in a certain way, because the guide knows where you're going, but you can decide what you want of that tour. And this last season, I've learned a bit more, because I start my tours now and I say, okay, do you guys want to have a full-on city tour with all the history and everything else? Do you guys want to just drive around and ask me questions and I'll ask them? Do you guys want to go drink? Do you want a mixture of everything? And some people like, I want to go drink, and we can talk about Argentina from the bar. Some people are like, no, no, I want all the history, and it depends. So the booking agents will sell you. They call it a city tour. The city tour can become whatever you want it to become. Yeah. The one thing we don't budge on is the Recoleta Cemetery. That's the one thing. I'm sorry,
yeah.
but if you're doing that, a lot of people will walk through it alone, and me and all our girls will walk through it again with them, because it's very different when you know the ins and outs about what is what and where is where, to when you just walk around through it alone. Very different. But other than that, we can do what people want to do. There's certain things that we can't, like go see penguins, which I was asked once in a tour. Yeah, I know we can't go see penguins. The penguins are 2 way south. But we have a whiskey bar, a whiskey museum. I've got clients that want to go to the whiskey museum. We've got a cigar bar, and that we go to that. Some people, if they want to go tea. Some people like to walk and just do walking tours. We do walking tours as well. We normally suggest not to do a walking tour, because you cover less of an area than you would do with a car, because we get off and we get on too. So it walks. You're not always stuck in the vehicle. But bueno, we do that. We started designing this year a rooftop tour. Go to different rooftops in the city, some of them for drinking, some of them just historical, which is also a good tour to do. We have the dinner and drinks tour. The dinner and drinks is one of the tours we sell the most. Is we take people out to dine and wine and bar hop at night, so they can see new areas and just try out new restaurants. We go and do our back scratching before, so by the time clients are here, we get treated like kings and queens. They have a ball. One of our girls is with them, and so normally, at least in my case, I tend to order most of the food. I always give people the option, but it's also, people don't really know what they want to order, because they don't know what they're eating. So I have a general idea, and I ask a few questions. I know what to order. Then there's a bar, so that's always a good tour in the city. Then another thing, which is personally one of my favorite tours, is the Delta, the Tigre. Tigre is just phenomenal. It's an area that is only 15 miles away from the city. It's a delta. It's a natural delta, growing delta, and it's the only delta in the world that goes from freshwater to freshwater. And it's a place that's gone through everything. Originally farmland, then aristocrat homes for weekends and summer homes. Then it became back to sort of labor land and Farrellville. Then it became a place where all the syndicates, where the unions had their places to go rest. And now it's a bit of everything, and it's back to being trendy. I say it's a mixture between the bayous, the Hamptons, and Thailand.
Hmm.
Everything happens on a boat. It's awesome, 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 awesome. And if not, if you're really into, into the countryside and whatnot, we have a tour that takes you to different estancias of the old Buenos Aires, of the province of Buenos Aires. So today I went to one actually. We did Areco, San Antonio de Areco, which is the town of the tradition, which is one of the most pretty towns of the province of Buenos Aires. We go there, we learn about the gauchos, we learn about the silversmithing of the gauchos. Then we go to a real estancia, working estancia, where we have fabulous lunch. You get to ride the horses, which are horse that are live merry-go-round. There's some places there are these actually are horses you can ride. There's a swimming pool. They have a little bit of locals come play the guitar. They have a thing that they call Doma India that I took some video, so we could use it, which is the gauchos talking to the horses. They make horses do things that horses don't do, like lay on their back with their 4 feet up to the air and kiss it's not a dog, it's a horse. But gauchos have a very, very, very strong, relationship with their horses. In fact, the estancia that we went today, the owner a few years ago invited all the workers to go to Iguazu, to the falls, which is north and a lot. Right, Tim? North and a lot. Um, but one of the gauchos said, "I'm coming, but I'm not taking a plane. There's no way I'm going to that metal bird." The man went from San Antonio de Areco to Iguazu horseback. 2.5 months one way and 2.5 months the other way. He took his horse from the estancia all the way with his wife to Iguazu and came back.
That's incredible. Because
Yeah,
I thought that's quite the journey.
it is quite the journey. It's almost 800 miles.
Oh my
And
gosh.
the town of San Antonio de Areco is the town where they call it the town of the tradition. Every second weekend of the month of May, all the gauchos from all Argentina gather there. From all of Argentina, all the way from the Gauchos from Tierra del Fuego, gather there, and they have their festivities. And it's a place where they keep the tradition alive. They come looking like the Tin Man, because gauchos were nomads, and the way they showed status and wealth is by adorning themselves with silver. So the more the silver, the better you were. Imagine they got to a point that they looked like the Tin Man. But it's beautiful, beautiful place to go to. There's places to stay in the city, in the town of Areco, and also in the estancias. There's actually places to stay in Tigre for the weekend, which are also very, very nice. These two areas outside of the city of Buenos Aires are these things that you're like in a different country. It's a different place because the city's so densely populated that out there, like, there's not a lot of people around. There still are, but it's not the same. So it looks like different, different places. And yeah, basically you can do sports tours. River Plate Boca Juniors. Do learn about that. Then at night, the tango is something that people
Mm.
enjoy going to see, and it's awesome. We have tango shows that you can do. We have tango lessons. In fact, my cousin Luz, or Lola, that a lot of people have had her. She also is part of the LOL team. She's a dance instructor and a singer, and after she does good jobs with most of the clients and that want to learn. She now does things through Zoom as well with them. So imagine how things have changed. But yeah, it's like I always say, I can tell you. You just have to ask. Ask. Tell me what you want. I will be able to provide in the city, and to the speed you want it. Because if it were for me, I go 150 miles. But
Right.
I can calm down with to see the people wanting what they want.
Well,
Tim, I didn't let you. I talk at all this time.
good.
And I'm
That's the
surprised
way.
I didn't throw a lot of F bombs either. I'm getting good at this.
That's the way it ought to be. This is great. And we talked about this before too. I think there needs to be an entire episode on the excursions folks can take outside of the
Mhm.
city. And I think if you're willing, that can be the next part of the series, because I'd really like
Yeah,
to get into that.
different places that they can go in the country, like Iguazu and
Yeah,
Mendoza and Calafate.
those are the places
For
I
sure.
want to go.
Yeah, for sure. It's awesome. There's so much to do with that. It's impressive. See,
Well,
see, I'm more than happy to do it anytime you want. I'm getting good at this.
no, this is great. This is great. Um,
Look, even only an hour, Tim. Ha!
I'm impressed.
High five.
And I think, let's see, I think this is going to be, after this episode, we're inching towards 5 hours of podcast together. So this is always a pleasure.
Yeah.
And for those who want, for those who want to
You
learn,
know what?
yeah, go ahead.
The next one we can do live,
Like from
face to face.
That sounds good. Except you'll be in Montana.
I'm coming to Montana.
Oh, right. We can record it here. I thought you meant do it live down there, but I was like, no, you're gonna be here first.
No, it's my turn to go up there, Tim. You already came. We have to share.
That's
I'm
right.
up there.
Well, I can't.
I'll
wait
be
to
there
get
for
back.
the whole month of June, so we can do something fun with it, you know.
Let's do
So,
it.
see,
We could talk about
let's do it.
Argentina live from the Madison River or something like that.
Exactly, something like that.
Well, thanks for coming on again. And for those who want to learn more, check out LOL Argentina on social media and their website as well. And I'm already looking forward to another episode.